It didn't come after a championship parade or a dramatic buzzer beater. It didn't follow a recruiting announcement or a post-game press conference packed with microphones. Dawn Staley's tweet arrived quietly, almost casually, on an ordinary evening when the college basketball world thought it already understood South Carolina women's basketball. Phones buzzed, screens refreshed, and within minutes, an entire program's future tilted onto a new axis, not because of what was won on the court, but because of what was finally said out loud. To understand why that tweet mattered, you have to understand where South Carolina women's basketball had been before Dawn Staley ever picked up her phone that night, long before the trophies, before the sellout crowds at Colonial Life Arena, before the national respect and national pressure. The program existed in the margins of the sport. It was competitive but not commanding, respected locally but rarely feared nationally. There were moments of promise, flashes of potential, but no sustained identity that told the rest of the country, "This is who we are, and this is what you must deal with." When Dawn Staley arrived in Columbia, she didn't inherit a powerhouse. She inherited expectations that were small, ceilings that were low, and a belief system that needed to be rebuilt brick by brick. She brought credibility from her playing days, Olympic golds, WNBA battles, and international respect, but credibility doesn't instantly translate into dominance. What followed was years of grinding, of recruiting battles lost and won, of seasons that taught more than they rewarded. South Carolina didn't become South Carolina overnight. It became South Carolina because Dawn Staley refused to let the program pretend it was something it wasn't ready to be. By the time championships started arriving, the narrative shifted. South Carolina wasn't chasing anymore. It was being chased. Every opponent circled the Gamecocks on the calendar. Every recruit saw Columbia not as a stepping stone, but as a destination. Success brought celebration, but it also brought scrutiny. And that scrutiny, especially in women's basketball, came with questions that went far beyond wins and losses. The sport was changing. NIL was reshaping recruiting. Transfer portals were rewriting loyalty. Social media was no longer a sideshow. It was the main stage. And in that environment, silence could be mistaken for weakness, patience for complacency, and dignity for disengagement. Dawn Staley knew this. She felt it in press rooms, she heard it in whispers from AAU circuits, she saw it in comment sections that questioned not her results but her philosophy. That tweet came on a night when the noise had gotten louder than usual. The kind of noise that suggests something is slipping, that dominance is fading, that the standard is no longer enough. Analysts debated whether South Carolina's style was outdated. Fans argued over rotations, recruiting choices, player usage. Some even dared to suggest that the rest of the country had figured out Dawn Staley's program. And then she tweeted. It wasn't long. It wasn't emotional. It didn't name names. But it was unmistakably firm. Dawn Staley didn't defend herself. She defined herself. She reminded everyone, players, fans, recruits, rivals, that South Carolina women's basketball wasn't built to chase trends or applause. It was built to win, to develop, to protect its culture, and to stand on principles even when those principles weren't popular. That single tweet did something rare in modern sports. It drew a line without creating a feud. It commanded respect without begging for it. It told recruits exactly what kind of program they were choosing, and it told players exactly what kind of coach they were playing for. There was no ambiguity left. You were either aligned with Dawn Staley's vision, or you weren't part of it. Inside the program, the effect was immediate. Players felt seen, not coddled, protected. Coaches felt validated. The message wasn't just for the outside world, it was for the locker room. Standards were not negotiable, identity was not flexible, and legacy was not accidental. Recruits took notice, parents took notice, high school coaches took notice. In a recruiting landscape flooded with promises, Dawn Staley's tweet felt different because it didn't promise anything. It stated expectations. It said, if you come here, you will be challenged, you will be coached, you will be held accountable, and if you survive it, you will be prepared for anything basketball, or life, throws at you. Media coverage shifted overnight. What had been framed as doubt became framed as resolve. What had been speculation turned into admiration. The tweet was quoted on broadcasts, discussed on podcasts, printed on graphics and debated on panels. Not because it was controversial, but because it was clarifying. Dawn Staley had taken control of the narrative without raising her voice. From that moment on, South Carolina women's basketball entered a new phase of its existence. It wasn't just a dominant program, it was a declared one. The kind of program that tells you exactly who it is before you ever step into the gym. Practices became sharper. Roles became clearer. Accountability became public knowledge. Opponents felt it too. Games against South Carolina no longer felt like just another matchup. They felt like a test of discipline and belief. Players didn't just prepare for talent, they prepared for pressure. They prepared for physicality, for defensive intensity, for mental endurance. And the Gamecocks leaned into that reputation instead of running from it. Years from now, when people look back at the dynasty, they will point to championships, undefeated runs, award winners, and packed arenas. But inside the program, many will tell you the turning point wasn't a banner. It was a moment when Dawn Staley reminded the world that leadership doesn't always come with speeches or celebrations. Sometimes it comes with 280 characters that refuse to bend. That tweet didn't change South Carolina women's basketball because it shocked people. It changed it because it anchored it. It ensured that success would never outgrow substance. It guaranteed that the program's loudest voice would always be its head coach's principles, not outside opinions. In an era where programs often drift with the tide, Dawn Staley planted her feet and let everyone know the tide would have to move around her. And from that moment on, South Carolina women's college basketball wasn't just winning games, it was defining what winning was supposed to look like. And that is how a tweet, written without theatrics, without hashtags, without apology, became the quiet declaration that secured a legacy already in motion, and made sure it would never lose its way again.